All right, today we're going to have Richie Piperato come down to my tattoo shop. He's been tattooing since about 1975. He's a legend in the area. He's brought a lot of things to this business as far as changing the way things were done. He brought fine art into it. He's worked with legends such as Don Ed Hardy, Jack Rudy, Anchor Steve Gabriel, Ernie Carafa. Those are just to name a few. He also changed the way we go about tattooing as far as health goes. He invented the Disposo needle, which was something that nobody was doing at the time. And you're going to have some time to meet him and hear what he has to say about that.
I had a duck to get out of my place, you know what I mean? Thank goodness I only lived a mile down the street, you know? But, you know, it was constantly tattoo. I used to go out of town just to get a little peace of mind. Well, you know, anywhere you show up, it's tattoo, tattoo, tattoo. You can stay and work and do that 24/7. Sometimes we did it 24. Yeah. Especially when the military came in on the paydays. You know, you got their payday, you know, they went where? First they hit the bars, then they hit the whorehouses, and then they hit the tattoo shops in that order, right? If they got any money left.
Where did you start out? How did you start out?
Well, I started out up in Mom's attic.
Right.
Little battery, tattoo machine, a couple bottles of ink.
Right.
Thought I'd become a pro. Things got a little big. House got smaller.
Right.
So I decided to open up a shop, which I did up in Old Bridge, New Jersey. And I took it from there.
Peter Guns made a trip to Detroit to do a photo shoot for the Horse magazine. And when we got to Detroit, you know, we asked the people, you know, like, what hotel are we staying in? And Kevin the fabricator said, no man, you guys ain't staying in a hotel, you're staying at my house with me and my wife, you know. We go to the guy's house, meet his wife, beautiful lady. They treat us just like part of the family, man. And after the photo shoot, you know, the people at the Horse, the same way, just really nice people. And we went out that night to a club with his friends. And all of his friends were just beautiful people, just, you know, just some great people. We met great people in Detroit, man, and they treated us like they knew us our whole life.
We had gotten these needles from Chris the Greek, and he got them from a guy in England named Tony Lynx. That was his connection. Well, his guy was coming over to visit him from England, so he said, can we come by the shop? Sure. And me and Richie sat there thinking, these needles are junk. What are we going to do to bust his chops? So we decided we're going to take a needle bar and a piece of string and tie the needles onto the bar with the eyes facing down. In other words, the eyes, instead of being against the bar, they were going to be what you tattoo with. So we did it, and when they came in, we talked a while, and Richie said, you know, look at it, these needles, they're great. Those eyes hold so much ink. It was hysterical.
You kind of started out with Ernie Carafa, right?
Yes,
Ernie
sir.
had a big
Yes.
part in getting you started.
Without a question.
It was Ernie Carafa, Gene Bernardo, those guys.
That's right.
I think you went to school with Gene Bernardo as a kid.
Well, not to school. Went to school of hard knocks with him.
Right.
We've been in every business from plumbing to night clubbing, and then tattooing.
Right. He was a plumber.
Plumber by trade originally,
Right.
yes.
And you got him into tattooing, or he got?
I know. We got into trying to turn a restaurant in Staten Island into a nightclub, which didn't fly too well. But he come across a couple of Coney Island Freddy tattoo machines he gave me a couple of them and said, here, you do what you can with them, and he did the same. I turned around and used them. Back then, there weren't too many people willing to share the knowledge with you.
Right.
So I went my way, Gene went his. All right, he went and opened up on Main Street in Asbury Park. I believe that was in '75 also. And I opened up in Old Bridge. Ernie was working in Brooklyn in a pool hall at the time. And I opened up on Route 9 in the city of Old Bridge. Ernie's mom and pop moved down to Manalapan. Ernie would come down every now and then to see his mom and dad. He'd stop in a tattoo shop. And
Was Ernie tattooing at that time?
yes, he was working up in New York. And it was a little closer. We hit it off pretty well, you know, like two brothers. And he come to work with me, and we started the Guideline tattoo chain.
Right.
I named it Guideline after the stencils that we used
Right.
in our day.
They were plastic acetates.
Plastic, yes.
Just scratch them out, put black powder in,
Right.
stick them on people, and then hope that they would stay there for the whole time the tattoo.
Granger's a bad motherfucker.
One time, when Tommy was still working at Midland Glass, that had to be early 80s, right?
Oh yeah, because I was there from, let me see, 70, I was there 15 years, 74 till like 80 something.
Yeah, it was early 80s. I went up on my bike to meet Tommy when he got off work. And we're going down the Parkway back towards Asbury. We were going to go somewhere. And he's like ahead of me a little bit. And I see him like weaving a little bit. I'm going, what the fuck? I pull up alongside him. He's like, he's asleep.
I'm
Yeah.
a narcoleptic.
So I yell, he wakes up, and then he's doing all right. And then a little while later, we're still on the Parkway, his headlight bracket broke. And it's still hanging on the wires. It's bouncing around, and every time it touches the frame and makes a ground, it lights up, you know, so it's
Disco light.
hitting the front wheel, bouncing up, hitting the frame, lighting up. It's crazy. So we pull over and fix that.
And I'm sleeping as I'm driving, I guess. Yeah.
Well, why do you sleep so much when you ride your motorcycle, Tom?
No, I was when I was working at the factory. I worked all night, so it was like, you know, it wasn't drinking,
Probably
it was
didn't,
just like
probably
no sleep.
didn't sleep the day before at all, and then worked all
When
night.
you're young, you think you don't need sleep. It's like, yeah, just keep going, you know.
You had Spalding, which was Paul Rogers' old partner.
Right.
And I believe National was putting out Flash as well, but not quite like the like Picture Machine, which Pat Martinique owned. And then later on,
J.D. Crowe.
J.D. Crowe,
Yeah. put a lot
which
of-
really opened it up.
Right.
I mean, it
J.D. Crowe
started going away from standard tattooing, started opening up to, plus with most of the colors coming into the business back then. I think we worked with like 5, 6 colors back in the day, you know, but once the colors started and the blending, it started getting very, more attractive, I'd say, you know.
Right. I think when J.D. Crowe came into it, he brought more of a fine art into his flash.
Correct. And he had many artists drawing for him,
Right.
okay? You know.
The Piperatos, the guys that brought me into tattooing, they turned me on to this guy named Eddie, who they said was probably the best motorcycle mechanic out there. So I was like, all right, man, I'll go and take my carburetor to Eddie. So he was somewhere down in South Amboy. I rode out to Eddie's place, and I rang his doorbell, and Eddie opens the door, and he's got to be a 6'5", totally tattooed guy dressed as a woman. And I'm like, is Eddie here? And he goes, well, no, I'm Elaine. And I was like, well, you know, Mike and Richie said for me to come see Eddie. And he goes, yeah, well, I'm Eddie, but I'm Elaine. And I was like, all right. So I had this linkered carburetor in my hand, and I really wanted to rebuilt. And Elaine says, he's like, come on in. And I was like, man, I don't know about this, man. I wasn't too hip on going into a big guy's house to have my carburetor rebuilt by a woman, or a man dressed as a woman. But at the same time, the guy was twice my size, and I was afraid he was going to kick my ass if I didn't go in his house. So I went in his house, literally dressed as a woman, and he brought me up at his kitchen table, and he goes, let me have your carburetor. And I was like, all right. And he took apart my carburetor. I swear to God, he's wearing a woman's wig, covered in tattoos. He had to be 6'5". And he took my carburetor apart, and he taught me everything I know about Harley carburetors. He was the best damn motorcycle wrench in town.
Richie Guideline, man. I grew up in Old Bridge. Yeah, when I would go there, you know, we were kids, and we would, you know, kind of sneak in, and, you know, and he was open late too, man, and right down the street from White Castle, between the bars, White Castle, and Richie Guideline. That shop was iconic. That real estate right there was iconic, because it was right on the off-ramp I took to go to my girlfriend's house, you know. But yeah, we would sneak in there, and he would snarl, and people would throw us out because we were kids, you know what I mean?
Jack Rudy, him and I became a habit. I mean, Jack's done everything from my elbows up. I mean, some of this he dated 1980. I mean, he did work.
And Jack did the big Jesus on you, right?
Yes, the Jesus.
Yeah.
He did a.
That's cool.
I brought him a postcard with some little honey getting eaten up by an octopus.
Uh-huh.
He just took his pen and sketched it on there. He's nocturnal, by the way. He only works at night.
Right,
you know.
right.
I think he put 11 hours into the Jesus head.
Yeah, I remember that.
Got a little tender. He did the pin-ups.
Yep.
Tried to straighten out a little.
And who did that? Who did the other stuff?
This here was mostly cover work that Ernie had done over the years. Coney Island Freddie broke quite a few people into the business in his lifetime.
Right. Yeah, he was a big part of the scene back then.
Oh my!
Just...
I've heard stories of 4 or 5 men working in the shop in Coney Island at one time, and the tissues almost being a foot deep on the floor. Bloody, colored tissues. All right? You know what I mean? Tissues out of a tissue box.
Right.
Right. I don't think they had Bounty paper towels back then.
Right, just from wiping them down and throwing them on the ground.
Right away, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess he wasn't using the sponge and bucket at that point, right?
I think they threw the brush away. I think the horses, that went back into the circuses.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
I heard stories like that, though, about the people tattooing in the sideshows, where they'd have a galvanized pail with a brush in it that they brush the horse down with, all right? That they'd turn around and take their arm and they're brushing, putting a bucket in. You picture the bugs doing a backstroke in that bucket, right?
Right, yeah.
Right. Lucky the brush didn't stand up. There's some stories in this business.
Today, you got to meet the legendary Richie Piperato, otherwise known as Guideline Richie. Gave us a real good history of tattooing in New Jersey. And to this day, I have nobody to thank but Elaine for teaching me how to rebuild carburetors. That's it. Is that not the truth?
You're right on the money.
The son of a bitch was great, wasn't he?
Right on the money.
Oh, man. I had a transvestite teach me how to rebuild carburetors. Thanks to you guys.
Transgender.
What?
Transgender.
Whatever, man.
I'll tell you a word.
Dude, I shit my pants, man. I opened the door and it was a woman. I was like, he's like, I'll teach you. And he did, man. He knew his shit.
Damn good wrench.
Fuck, man. Son of a bitch. It blew my mind.
Pete, go back to LA.